down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs that has more viewers, consistent viewers, than CNN. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And sorry, Twitch folks. And when the Twitch folks come over, because I'm sure they will, or maybe they won't, I don't know. But Twitch folks, I'm just going to apologize right now. Twitch is really giving me some heartburn. Every so often it asks me to, like, I don't know, all of a sudden I can't log in. And I have to go and, like, reset my password. And then I can't log in for another, I don't know, couple of days or whatever. So yeah, it's just I'm seriously reconsidering my whole idea of going to Twitch. Twitch was something that one person was like, hey, why don't you stream to Twitch? And I said, okay, fine. You know, I've got one more slot left in my ability to do so. So I was able to go ahead and anyway, so if you happen to be a Twitch fan and you are coming over to one of the other streams, that would be great. Otherwise, I can't tell you what the hell happened. It's that, I don't know if it's the security thing or what the situation was, but basically it was telling me I could not get in to that. And I see it's I don't know. Anyway, whatever. It's a technology thing, I'm sure. All right, so I'm seeing a bunch of people popping over here on Rumble. They are talking. I see some people over on Facebook as well. Thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. I took a few minutes this week and went through and took a look at, like, my Rumble stats, just as a let's just call it a temperature gauge. And I took a look at my past year's streams, took them all together. I was able to download it as a CSV file and all this. And so I was analyzing my exposure. And if you take out the top three broadcasts of last year, which of course include, in terms of viewership, of course, which include the Mark K interview, the Jay Bose interview, and the Hannah Guile interview. Those are my three top performing videos for 2022. If you take those three out, because obviously I don't want to interfere with that in terms of because of their star power. I'm just looking at just me, myself, and I. I actually averaged about 145 viewers or 145 views per episode. So what that means is the word is getting out. You guys are doing absolutely wonderful in getting the word out, telling people, having people come on over and check out the broadcast. And so I owe all of that to you, my Whiskey Warrior P1s, who come and subscribe and hang out and talk and do all of this stuff. I am so happy for all of you. I do appreciate it. And I'm looking to keep pushing and get on track for 2023 to be even a better year for the broadcast and for, just all of us in general. 2023, I'm hoping, is going to be a much better year. So, thank you for all of that. I do appreciate that. And I see some other people that are popping in over on Rumble. Of course, Rumble is the free speech alternative to YouTube, and I will continue to push it, even though I'll stay broadcasting on YouTube and on Facebook as much as I can. But I really want to make sure that Rumble's my place, because obviously if YouTube and Facebook decide to kick me off, Rumble won't do that. Ironically, I haven't seen but YouTube hasn't done anything about my last few mentions of, like, the whole COVID thing and the vaccines. So I'm kind of surprised that I must not be big enough over there, which I have 100 plus subscribers, like 102 subscribers over there. which is cool, and I'm very thankful for them. But you know, to be honest with you, I'm not all that assured that YouTube and Facebook are going to be hanging out and letting me be there for very long. But anyway, all right. Hey, I want to give a shout out, and I'm thankful that she's here. I want to give a shout out to Z. Now, one of the things that I did find out in my evaluation, looking at like my statistics and stuff, my demographics for the most part is in the 35, 38, 40-ish range up to 65 is where the predominant viewers and fans are in. And I don't blame them for that. I really don't. You guys are just absolutely awesome. However, I do love the fact that I have some younger subscribers, and I have two in particular that I am, you know, that I'm really focused on because they've made themselves known, and I do appreciate that. The first one, obviously, that I just mentioned is Z. Z is a newcomer to the broadcast, and I am happy that she has decided to come back for a second time. Hopefully, she decides to stick around for a little bit longer. She says that she's around 20 years old, so that's cool. Thank you very much for coming back. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, I can keep entertaining you and teaching you some things. The other one, who I know that he always gets really excited whenever I mention this, I will mention in just a moment, because of the fact that, and I got to figure out, oh, it's this one. Yes. Okay. Because of the fact I got to talk about my sponsor, Institute on the Constitution. Now, the Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following three key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC.whiskeymusings.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is IOTC.whiskeymusings.online. Spelling that phonetically, that's India Oscar Tango Charlie.whiskeymusings.online, to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC.whiskeymusings.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution, buddy tested, buddy approved, and my second and probably the youngest fan that I have out there, he got one of these for Christmas, just prior to Christmas, and he is learning about the Constitution of the United States through this document. Great document here. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is about 1/8 of an inch Saddleback leather. The pages are inside are water resistant, and take a look, if I can get it, take a look at that stitching. It goes all the way through the entire binding. It has a 100-year guarantee against manufacturing defects and material defects. So if you have a problem with this thing in the time that you own it that is not caused by damage or whatever damage that you did, you can send it to them and they will either repair or replace it for you at no charge. Once again, to get to this guy and support the show, go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's Constitution, spelled like this, .whiskeymusings.online. And do me a favor, go to the Institute of the Constitution and check them out today. and I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate and a sponsor. Those guys are great. All right. So, tonight, I am drinking from my Four Roses small batch bottle that I received as a Christmas gift. We are still close to Christmas, so this is awesome. I go back and forth. I kind of switch around some things. So I also know that there is I've got another style, brand new style of whiskey that will be coming my way sometime in the near future, or sometime in the future, I should say, because of a fabulous sponsorship partnership that has spawned for 2023 through TGRN, but I'll tell you that at another time. All right. So tonight I have I mentioned CNN in my opening statement, and the reason being is because I don't know if you've heard, but CNN by themselves, they are looking at putting comedians in replacement of their typical news anchors or whatever I guess they talk about. Z and Daybreak and everybody else. I have something cooking on that, on the hat. I have something cooking on that. So I know where I got it. And yes, that is true. 3 Chevy. Originally, my son bought it and I acquired it, but I now have the information of where this thing is at, how much they are, and that kind of stuff. So I am hatching something for you folks, hopefully in the near future, with regards to the hat. All right. So, okay. So CNN is probably, instead of being a propaganda network, they are going to rebrand themselves as the Comedian News Network. Oh, but before they do that, I do have this one story that I picked up, and let me go ahead and bring it up here. So CNN, apparently, according to this article in Red State, CNN finally reports on Biden family corruption, and everyone should be asking why. Well, this is true. This is true. And the reason being is because of the fact that when the propaganda news networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and the rest start turning on the Democrats, you have to ask yourself, why are they doing that? And this particular article kind of talks a little bit about it, but the thing that's interesting about it is that they apparently are no longer trying to cover up this whole thing. Yeah, I just don't understand why people can't seem to see the forest for the trees in these kinds of situations, but the Biden family has some serious questions that they're going to have to answer for. And yeah, it's really, really kind of interesting. But you have to realize that the switch that is happening here, the backstabbing, I guess you could say, that's happening here, it's happening for a purpose. And the purpose that you have to ask is it because of the fact that they are no longer carrying the Biden family, or is there something else at play? Now, Dan Bongino, if you don't watch Dan Bongino, I'm telling you, the man has got some inside baseball. I won't say he's got a lot of inside baseball, but he's got some inside baseball. And if you don't watch him regularly, I highly suggest you watch at least the last two episodes, today's and yesterday's, possibly even the day before. And also take a look and check out his book, Follow the Money, because that is, even the first chapter outlines how the whole thing in Ukraine turned into this wonderful money-making opportunity that the Bidens, in particular Joe Biden, jumped on. And Dan does a really good job at digging into it. And so if you get a chance, and I don't want to go through a whole bunch of stuff because just about every political commentator on the right has been, has seriously been going after this thing. But the funny thing about it is everybody's so concerned about the classified documents, and the classified documents are one thing, but, you know, and honestly, I mean, yes, okay, they are a big thing. I'm not going to deny that. But really, really, really what it is you have to actually take away from the document part of it and look at the relationships and the connections that are going on with this. Okay. And so, for an example, and let me pull this up just because I want to make sure. So for an example, the Daily Wire popped this article where it talks about how the Biden attorney that was interviewed by the feds, in the whole doc review kind of thing, all of a sudden doesn't have what they call a number 302 summary report. And what a 302 summary is basically after you have an interview, the interviewer goes and puts down like a summary of what was discussed as a part of it. Well, that becomes part of the case file, and that becomes part of a paper record. And the funny thing is that as of right now, we do not seem to have the number 302 report. And so, yeah, this is just an example of either complete incompetence by the FBI in particular, or federal investigators, or it was done specifically trying in an attempt to try and help cover up this whole thing. Now, the funny thing about this is that obviously Attorney Merrick Garland is the is the top guy in the DOJ, and he, realistically, where is this going to go? It's probably not going to go anywhere. What's probably going to happen is they are going to utilize this to this whole situation to basically make it to where, hey, all of a sudden they're going to realize that the Presidential Records Act, which is what they've been going after Trump for with the whole Mar-a-Lago raid and everything else, they're all of a sudden going to say, yeah, you know what? That's no longer a criminal statute. It's more of an administrative one, which, if you recall, I told you on this program a long time ago. So what they are going to do is they are probably going to drop the cases against Trump and against Biden at the same time, in the event, or in the attempt to make sure that Biden doesn't really get into much trouble with this. Well, the funny thing about this whole thing with the Biden docs is the fact that, a lot of the left-leaning news outlets are all saying, oh, well, he was helping with the National Archives. They reported it right away. They transmitted the information. Well, there's a couple of things within all of that you really have to pay attention to, not what they're trying to tell you, but sort of the underlying things that they're not telling you. And one of those things that they are not telling you has basically the money passing from one Biden to the other. So, obviously, first of all, Hunter Biden, at one point when he was filling out an application for something, I can't remember what it was, but he was filling out an application, and he claimed that he owned the house that Joe Biden's, that those documents were found in the garage, that he owned the house. The fact of the matter is that we don't know this for a fact, 100%, but there isn't any, at least unbeknownst to me, there isn't any records to really prove that Hunter Biden actually owned the house itself. He also apparently, according to this Breitbart piece, he paid for 2010 repairs on the Delaware house where Joe Biden stashed the classified docs. Now, the thing here is not to pay attention to the fact that Hunter Biden paid for the repairs in terms of, oh, well, he paid for X, he paid for Y, and the docs were there and so on and so forth. It's following the money trail for the bigger picture. You don't want to focus just on the fact, oh, he just paid for repairs or, oh, he just paid for rent. No, you want to focus on the actual money trail. And so here is a very, very interesting connection with this that, let me see, that the warroom.org, total right leaning. Okay. And most of the time I prefer to grab things that are left leaning because at least that way I'm getting, when they uncover some of these things, you'll know it's something. There's some substance to it. Sometimes the right leaning outlets, just like far left leaning outlets, they can kind of make stuff up. But this is extremely interesting. This is an exclusive that came up, that Hunter Biden has his China linked company, the company that he's been working with, over in China, brokering deals and everything else, that has been shown based off of his own laptop to be linked to the CCP, okay, the Chinese Communist Party. Apparently they paid Hunter $49,910 in rent. And that is ironically identical to the amount that Hunter Biden paid for Joe's house, where the classified documents were found. Now, this is according to expense reports that have been pulled up, and there's some images in the document in the article if you go and link it. So Rosemont Partners was the upper layer international financing firm that Hunter Biden his father was a part of, along with a couple of other people. But apparently the Rosemont Seneca Advisors LLC has a invoice that was paid from the Chinese company that they were partnered with to Rosemont Partners, and that exact same amount all of a sudden shows up as being paid to Joe Biden from Hunter Biden for rent. The chances of that happening, honestly, are like more than my winning the lottery, or less than my winning the lottery. The exact same amount showing up in both places is really, really the question. And so, something about this is where this is how money trails are followed. When you're investigating, and I don't have really much investigatory experience necessarily, but when you follow pieces of paper and you start correlating dates and amounts and transaction numbers and things like that, you start picking up on where money is traveling. And that specific amount, $49,910, and the fact that it showed up on two separate locations, that exact same amount, and that it was also shown to be used, or the payment itself was supposed to be used for rent, leads us to a really interesting correlation between the CCP and the Rosemont Seneca Partners, which is Hunter Biden's business that he formed, and Joe Biden. So the question that must be asked here, is this an example of the money trail and the funding that was running from China or the CCP all the way through to Joe Biden in that whole idea of 10% for the big guy, which has been shown on Hunter Biden's laptop on multiple occasions. So this is kind of an interesting correlation. Now, what does it really necessarily prove anything? Maybe if we can find other indications that things are set up here in terms of this kind of scenario. If we can start finding more and more of these types of entries throughout this, and by we, I mean me or the investigators, if we can start finding more and more links like this, it's going to become more and more clear that money was actually being funneled with the idea that it's going from China directly to Joe Biden through a couple other people, but directly to him. And if that's the case, then he is without a doubt compromised 100%. Okay. 100%. Real quick shout out. I've got a shout out to D over on Rumble. And yes, that is a letter D. And that is a young man who is an associate, associate of Z. But Z and D, D and Z. That's kind of interesting. They sort of tie together. Anyway. All right. Never mind. All right. Now, okay. So let me blank this out because I got to find the next article that I want to talk about. So we have a couple other things that are really questionable about these whole Biden docs. In terms of a couple of things that happened during the search. And one of the things in particular was the fact that apparently, at least according to this Daily Wire article, the DOJ declined to actually monitor the Biden attorney's search for the classified docs at the president's home. All right. So here's the thing. First of all, the attorneys may not have had top secret clearance to be able to view the documents that are being found. This is kind of interesting that the DOJ would, of course, knowing this, would, of course, say, you know what, we're not going to bother. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. We're just going to let you do it. If these documents, first of all, were classified as top secret, the top and the highest TSSCI is the highest classification you can get. That stands for top secret, specially compartmentalized information, meaning that that document is supposed to stay within a secured facility, can only be viewed by individuals who not only have clearance, but also have essentially a need to know the information that is contained within that document. The DOJ literally decided that they were not going to monitor the Biden attorneys searching for other classified documents in all these other cases. Now, the question that has to be asked coming out of this, of course, is if the Department of Justice were a true nonpartisan organization, they would have had somebody there. They would have sent somebody from the FBI. They would have sent somebody with the idea that they, with the proper clearance to be able to validate the docs, to be able to pick the docs up. They would not have left it for the Biden attorneys. Now, we already know from previous information that's come out that a lot of what was picked up at the University of Penn office has to deal with Ukraine and Iran, and I can't remember the third place, but it was classified documentation that was dealing with foreign powers. And Dan Bongino, again, he outlines in today's episode a really, really good question or a really good link in terms of who might have been viewing that document and who outside of Biden might have been using the information that was contained within it in their dealings with these other foreign powers. Okay. So that basically, again, this is all, you can't focus so much on the classified docs. That's what the left wants you to do. That's what they are. That's what the new mainstream media is looking at and trying to get you to understand. The key here is, number one, who had access in all of these facilities? Well, as you noticed, Biden's own son, who doesn't have a top secret clearance, doesn't have any reason to be viewing classified documentation, apparently had access to the garage because he went in and worked on, or had somebody else work on Biden's Corvette, or at least went in and took it out. So, yeah, it's one of those things where all of these things are starting to add up, and they're really not looking good for Joe Biden. In fact, it's looking so bad for Joe in particular that even Obama's old ethics chief slams him over the classified doc scandal. Quote, inexcusable neglect of the most basic security protocols, end quote. And yeah, so now you see some of the left is starting to turn completely on Biden. And you have to ask yourself, first of all, why are they doing that? Number one. And number two, what benefit do they gain by going after him, or by no longer protecting him and covering for him? What kind of benefit are they looking for? What are they looking to gain out of this all of a sudden change of heart? And we're talking from CNN all of a sudden starting to report, all the way down to all of these things starting to come out, these leaks, the finding of the documents, all of these reports that are coming out and being shown. What is the ultimate purpose here? And this is the biggest question in terms of what's going on. Now, knowing the left, like I do, Biden has outlived his usefulness. He is no longer useful to them, and so therefore he is going to lose all of their protections. That is my assumption out of all of this as to what's happening with all of these things that are going on. Now, a couple other articles just really quickly, because I don't want to spend too much more time on this, because again, several other people have definitely covered this a lot more thoroughly and much more in depth than I have. But another article popped here, which this is very interesting, and I have to ask the question. So Jonathan Turley, who is he's a professor, or not, he's not a professor, but he basically says that Biden's lawyers are likely witnesses in a criminal investigation. And yes, I would agree. They are. So he is a law professor. He is a law professor with George Washington University. That's Jonathan Turley. And he says that that President Joe Biden's lawyers are now likely witnesses in a criminal investigation as the probe of Biden's handling of classified documents continues. So the big question here again is what are they trying to avoid by throwing Biden under the bus with this classified document scandal? And especially if it becomes a criminal investigation, that's the question. And I agree with him. Yeah, now they are witnesses. They are witnesses essentially after the fact of him taking that stuff out. And just as a side note, when we're talking about Hunter Biden, and of course, I keep saying again that the laptop cover-up was the major national reason, keep that in mind, the major national reason as to why people voted for Joe is that they didn't know about the Hunter Biden laptop and how criminal this family actually is. Well, if you recall, there was 51 Intel people that signed a letter basically stating essentially not under oath, but basically staking their reputations on this whole thing, that the Hunter Biden laptop was nothing but Russian disinformation. Well, this popped this week, the last couple of days, that apparently Douglas Wise, who was one of the 51 that went and was among the signatories who pushed the whole Russian disinformation narrative, has now come out and said that even though he signed the letter, he actually admits that significant portions of the emails that were first leaked from the laptop from the New York Post article, they literally had to be real. So in other words, he signed this letter knowing that several bits and pieces that were being leaked and shown online were actually real. Now, is he going to get anything? No, because the letter doesn't really mean anything. All it was just a published letter saying it was Russian disinformation. It wasn't like it was a legal document or he was sworn under oath or anything like that. But again, this just puts another nail in the whole coffin that the Hunter Biden laptop was not only real, but that the information on it is authentic, and that the left needs to quit coming after the right and telling them that, oh, it's all Russian disinformation, et cetera, et cetera. This is absolutely horrible in terms of that. I don't know why this guy even has a job anymore. Realistically, if I was his boss and I found out that he lied on a document as important as that, even though it wasn't a legal document, there would be some questions in terms of his credibility. And they keep talking about how they are saying, well, our credibility is that's tantamount to our success. Well, guess what? You're the ones that are screwing it up, just like the FBI is screwing it up. Okay. Just absolutely horrible as far as that goes. All right. Let me go ahead and let's go back here. All right. So I'm going to take a second, just kind of just take a second. That was a lot of information about the Hunter Biden stuff, and it's going to come out even faster and even more. You're going to be drinking like you're from a freaking fire hose. As far as this is concerned, dealing with this information, because of the fact that they are going to attempt to try and draw your attention away from something else that might be going on within the Democrat Party. All right. Let's see. What is our next? Our next segment is...
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
And we have the pet of the week. And this week's pet of the week, ironically, is a double entry. The last week's pet of the week was with Amy Jean Viner. And this one is submitted by Amy Jean Viner again. And I've got to find... Where is it? Come on, here we go. All right. So let me explain. This is oh God, I'm going to screw this up. Tormenta. She's also known as Toto, Toaster Oven, Tori. I don't know how many names you want to assign to this dog. But yes, Amy has lots of dogs. Yes. Yeah, we know. We know Amy has lots of dogs. Because of course she loves to do things like agility and that kind of stuff. Well, Tormenta actually does a different style of agility, type of thing. And Tormenta is, in this particular entry, is doing what's called a barn hunt trail. And this was actually just this past weekend. Tormenta is 11 and a half, and she loves doing this. So what this barn hunt trail basically is they hide, they take anywhere from 1 to 5 rats, put them in tubes, and they hide them around a course. And this particular course has straw and hay bales in it, but they hide 1 to 5 rats. Now, the dog has 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go and find the rats. Now, the dog and the owners, of course, obviously don't know how many rats there are. So you really have to, the dog has to find all of the rats, climbing around on the course and tunneling into the course and so on and so forth. And because you have no idea how many there are, you really have to take, according to what Amy tells me, you really have to be able to read your dog in order to understand when the dog has actually found the rat in order to know. Okay. Now, so this obviously is a very beautiful picture of it. But here is Tormenta, and I'm assuming this is Amy. I'm hoping this is Amy, but they are looking at the ribbon that she earned this past weekend for this particular event. And as you can see, they have straw bales around, and course, the course itself in this particular case had straw bales. But Tormenta is also very, very happy to be with Amy. Very happy. And she loves her too. Gives in a kiss. I don't know what the idea of the finger is about, but I'm guessing it's covering up something on the ribbon that is of personal information with regards to what's going on. So that is this week's pet of the week, Tormenta. You know, Amy, I got to tell you, these dogs are just absolutely gorgeous when you've got them all brushed out and in the light like this. They are just absolutely gorgeous. You should be very, very proud of the work that you do with these dogs and what they provide for you. That is just absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. All right. And that is this week's pet of the week. Do me a favor. If you want to submit your pet of the week, go to, or I should say, send me an email at fans, F-A-N-S, that's Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra, at whiskeymusings.online. And as I do a pet of the week every Wednesday. Right now, I don't have anything in the queue. So if you submit between now and, say, Tuesday night, I can almost guarantee you that your animal will be on the pet of the week unless somebody else jumps ahead of you and gets it in. And so do that for me. Also, you can use the same email address for my Saturday night segment, which is Questions for Whiskey. You can, again, submit that at fans@whiskeymusings.online. If you're doing Pet of the Week, send me a picture, send me pertinent information, name, age, breed, any kind of story that you want to talk about with them. And they can be pictures of anything. I mean, we've had dogs that have been dressed up. We've even had a frickin' spider on the show. Okay. If you don't have a dog, you can come up with an interesting story about spiders as well. We've had that too. So yeah, submit that to fans, F-A-N-S, @whiskeymusings.online. For next week, next Wednesday for Pet of the Week. And then also you can submit your questions for whiskey at that same email address for Saturday night. And Amy, thank you for sharing yet another one of your fabulous dogs. We do appreciate it. I love seeing the animals. I really do. All right. Okay. So, I don't know if you've noticed, but there are some states in particular that have picked back up on the whole thing with regards to the gun control kind of scenario. And a lot of these states, obviously, they're leftist states. I mean, let's just face it. The left hates guns. They absolutely hate guns. And so, they are going to do anything and everything they can in order to get a hold of the symbol of American freedom. I mean, if you go to other countries believe it or not, that if they walk around in America, they will be out of place, not having a gun on their hip and so on and so forth. And of course, this is propagated by the movies in Hollywood in terms of, you know, the whole idea of, you know, all of the guns that are here in the United States. But the thing about it is that you're going to start seeing now the states starting to ramp up on some of this stuff. And I've got a couple of examples here, a couple of states that are doing this. So let me go ahead and bring this up. So first of all, Massachusetts is now thinking of banning all semi-automatic firearms, not just the dreaded AR-15, which I've got comments on Geraldo here in a minute, but virtually all semi-automatic firearms, according to the American Military News, would be banned under a proposed Massachusetts law expanding the reach of its existing assault weapons, and that's in quotes, assault weapons, because there is no such thing as an assault weapon. The word assault in the English language is a verb, not an adjective. Okay, let's just get that cleared out right away. Apparently, starting this year, Democrats control the state legislature as well as the governor's office and are fueling the party's hopes of a new package for a gun control law, as reported by the Boston Globe. So a slew of new bills have already been introduced by Democrat State Representative David Linsky, including one that would expand its definition of banned assault weapons to include virtually all semi-automatic firearms. Assault weapons, as defined by various features and specific models, have been banned in the state since 1994. Now, to be honest with you, all automatic weapons have been banned across the entire U.S. for many, many years. But the idea of an assault weapon has such a vague definition. That's one of the problems that we've had with a lot of these things, is that it's had such a vague definition that most firearms that are under the idea of an assault weapon actually are relatively indescribable, to be honest with you, and describe a bunch of other what they consider regular firearms that are used for things like hunting and self-protection. And so this is where the argument goes back and forth in terms of this idea of assault weapons. Now, I've talked about on this program, and I've proven multiple times on this program, first of all, the Second Amendment has absolutely nothing in it. Zero, zilch, nothing in it that states that the federal government can determine what kind of firearms somebody can have. In fact, looking back in when the Second Amendment was written, the term well-regulated, which a lot of leftists and a lot of gun control nuts want to glom onto and say that means that it has to be controlled and regulated by the government. The term well-regulated back in the day when it was written actually meant something that was in proper working order. And you can look this up because Noah Webster's dictionary of, I believe it's like I don't know if it was 1894 or something like that. Well-regulated, meaning in working order, is the number one definition for the term well-regulated, like having a well-regulated clock. Something that is working properly and accurate and so on and so forth. So this whole idea, okay, let me clarify something because Buddy actually has kind of corrected me. You can have an automatic weapon if you apply for an NFA. And you pay your, I don't know if it's $200 anymore, but it's a special tax and a special stamp that you can get if you want to own an automatic firearm. The problem is that your standard person who doesn't have that does not have the ability to have automatic weapons in the situation. Okay. So Yes, he is correct. They are not all banned, but they are under certain regulated conditions. And those regulated conditions are not for the standard average American. The point that I was trying to make was that a standard average American with no specialized tax, no specialized forms, no specialized anything, can't just go out and acquire an automatic weapon anymore. Okay. So that's what I meant. So, buddy, thank you for keeping me honest. I do appreciate that. All right. So this isn't the only place where things are going awry when it comes to semi-automatic weapons, and especially weapons and any kind of gun control. I don't know if anybody knew this, but apparently SCOTUS today decided, and that's the Supreme Court of the United States, decided that they were not going to hear an emergency appeal for the New York law that just went through. Several people, apparently several gun advocates, went and asked for an emergency hearing immediately so that the newest New York state law, which is another place that wants to, control your life and control the weapons that you own, they are hanging on to the law, and SCOTUS declined to actually hear that emergency hearing. Now, whether or not they are actually going to hear the case later on down the road, I don't know. But emergency hearings like that are typically used to put a stay on on a law or something like that, to put it into limbo. And SCOTUS decided that they're not even gonna listen to that particular emergency request. So, which is sad, honestly, even though I think SCOTUS is going to get a little tired of hearing all of these things because of the fact that, and I actually blame John Roberts for this, because often he goes and when he writes a ruling or when they write a majority opinion, they generally tend to make it extremely narrow in scope. And why they do this, I have no idea. If the Supreme Court of the United States would just do their job and basically say, hey, dumbasses, sorry for the cussing there, but dumbasses, the Second Amendment literally states that the right to keep and bear arms is not only an individual right, but it is also something that cannot be infringed, meaning you people can't put anything on it. That's what the Constitution states. And I said this in an episode before. I've broken it down. I have a freaking meme that breaks it all down for you. And so, why SCOTUS won't do this and just come out and say flat out that no matter what you guys do, you cannot go against the Constitution, which literally states that the gun ownership shall not be infringed, period. Meaning nothing special added to it. You can't stop it. You can't keep people from doing it. Why they won't do that, I have no idea. I honestly don't. I mean, that would put all of this crap to bed and to rest very, very quickly, to be completely honest with you. However, there is another state. There is another state up in Illinois. And Illinois has apparently instituted some sort of a gun control law that the sheriffs up there, and more than 70 county sheriffs, are saying that they will not enforce the state's assault weapons ban. Now, if you recall, I did an entire episode talking about the constitutional sheriff. Now, a sheriff, just to really quickly recap, a sheriff is actually a different law enforcement officer than your state police, than even your federal police, like your federal agents and so on and so forth, in the fact that, first of all, the sheriff is elected. And secondly, the sheriff has been around, the position of sheriff has been around so long that it predates the entirety of the Constitution. And therefore, it has been upheld by SCOTUS that a sheriff actually has complete control and jurisdiction over their county. Now, there aren't very many state constitutions that even question this authority. And so because the sheriff is the number one elected law enforcement official in his or her county, okay, that pretty much means that if the sheriff of the county, and this has been fought over and proven, that if the sheriff decides, yeah, I'm not going to enforce this law, SCOTUS has already ruled on the fact that the sheriff can decide to do that. And the reason being is because the sheriff takes an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. They do it just like our political officers do. But these sheriffs in particular are standing up for it. And a great book, it comes from the Institute on the Constitution, and it's a little book. It really is really, really fast. You could probably read it in a matter of a couple of hours, depending upon the speed at which you read. But it talks about the constitutional sheriff, and it was written by one of the sheriffs that initiated back in the 1990s when the original Brady bill was put into play, that he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And this is where the Supreme Court upheld the fact that he did not have to enforce the 1994 background checks and things like that. So, this has been taken to court a few times, and SCOTUS has pretty much agreed with and has focused on the idea that the constitutional sheriff actually overrides pretty much anybody else within that space. Now, does that mean that a sheriff, can tell other folks like the state patrol and so on and so forth to get out of their county? That's still up to debate. But the fact of the matter is that the sheriff, being an elected individual, not someone who is appointed, such as a city police officer or city police chief, and say a state police chief who are appointed by a particular state, the sheriffs are elected. And because they are an elected official, that gives them special dispensation, let's say, when it comes to law enforcement. Now, it's going to be interesting to watch how these sheriffs actually stand up to this, because of the fact that if you look at this article from the Daily Caller, apparently the Governor Pritzker, I don't know if you knew about this, but Governor Pritzker of Illinois was saying that these sheriffs, if they don't bother enforcing the law, that they are going to get fired. Now, I'd like to see him enforce that, because honestly, they don't report to the governor. They report to the people who elected them in. And so, a couple years back when I started seeing Ron DeSantis, the super governor of the country, the governor that everybody should be following, But when the super governor, Ron DeSantis, started challenging Joe Biden in particular over these mask mandates and everything else that was coming on along with COVID, I made the statement that this is going to set up the situation where it deals with the federalist way that our government is supposed to work, where the federal government is very small and very limited, and the states and state governors in particular actually have a lot more power than, say, the president of the United States does. And this is where these kinds of showdowns are where things are going to start getting really interesting, and where a lot of these people are going to get a lesson in the actual civics of our country that have been dormant and glossed over for many generations. See, most people believe that the federal government overrules everything. The federal government really doesn't. In the original Constitution, in the way that it's supposed to work, and I'm telling you, you want to know this? Go right to the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment states it clearly. If it's not defined in the Constitution, nor specifically prohibited by the Constitution to the states and the people. Everything that is outside of the Constitution's purview falls to the states and the people. And it's that particular amendment, my favorite. I'll be honest with you, outside of the first and the second, it is probably my favorite, and as far as I'm concerned, the most underused amendment. But that amendment states it 100% crystal clear that if it's not in the Constitution as a power enumerated to the federal government by the states and the people, nor is it specifically stated that the federal government has a power that is prohibited to the states and the people, it resides to the states and the people, meaning that the states have a much higher power hierarchy than the federal government is supposed to have. We have lost that in this country. People seem to think that the federal government sits at the top of the pyramid. They don't have the same power that your state and local governments are supposed to. Your state and local governments, and this is why the founders did this. They experienced what it was like to be governed by a man 3,000 miles away, meaning the King of England. And they did not want that to happen again. And so when they made this system of government, which, by the way, is the first system of government that is a constitutional republic that was ever seen within history, when they made this government, they decided that instead of the federal government having overarching power over everything, that the federal government basically commanded and controlled the entire country in terms of the borders and dealing with foreign entities, but that the states actually had much more power than the federal government when it came to residing within the U.S. And so the federal government is not as big and as powerful as what we've allowed it to get in terms of its capabilities. There's a lot of stuff that the federal government is doing today that is accepted, that is not purview of the federal government. Case in point was the whole Roe versus Wade reversal. There is not one single shred within the Constitution that talks about abortion being a federal government purview and responsibility. Not one. That, because it's not defined in it, nor specifically prohibited by it to the states, it belongs to the states. That's why it got overturned. Now, they may not have specifically stated it, but the Supreme Court, when Roe versus Wade was first decided, overstepped their bounds. And that was corrected with the Dobbs decision. Okay. This scenario is going to set up the federal or the law enforcement scenario if things continue to move forward with this idea, because the sheriffs are not going to enforce these. They have a constitutional responsibility, and I am very, very proud of those 70 counties, those 70 sheriffs who have all stood up and basically said that they are not going to enforce this. And so this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out against Governor Pritzker, honestly. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about is as far as this topic is concerned, is our wonderful idiot Geraldo. And yes, I call him an idiot. The man has no sense of intelligence in his body anymore. If you've ever seen him go up against Dan Bongino, he when they go against each other on like the Five or on Hannity or whatever, when you see the two of them, Dan Bongino hits with facts, evidence, states logic, and reason and everything else. Geraldo does exactly the opposite and melts down in a I won't say hate-filled, but definitely expletive-filled attack on Dan Bongino's character because of the fact that Geraldo knows that he's getting bested. And this is what happens all the time with these people who are who are basically on the left and have no facts and evidence to really follow on. Now, for you younger listeners who are out there, and I know one or two actually left, but for you younger listeners out there, this is the same piece of advice that I've given to my kids, one of which is an adult now, an early age adult in 21. Always, always, always make sure that you have the facts and the evidence to back up your position, whatever position it is. Always make sure you have the facts and evidence, because if you have facts and evidence, you can't be disputed. It really, literally cannot be disputed if you have facts and evidence. Okay. Now, that being said, Geraldo stuck his damn foot in his mouth once again. He basically stated that AR in the terminology AR-15 stands for assault rifle. Now, as I just said, assault in the English language is actually a verb, not an adjective. But AR in the AR-15, which is a common, very, very common platform in today's environment, AR stands for Armalite Rifle, which was the first manufacturer of the AR-15 as it is known today. Now, Colt Arms did a pattern match and basically either bought or remanufactured it and turned it into the M16 for the military. But the fact of the matter is that AR does not stand for assault rifle. AR does not stand for anything other than the original manufacturer, which is Armalite Rifle. Now, a lot of people use that terminology, AR-15, to reference the platform that was developed. And AR-15s, as I've said in multiple occasions, the AR platform itself is basically like the Lego of the gun world. And the reason being is because you can do all kinds of different things with it. Like the Mark K show kind of mentioned today, you can have attachments that fire off beer cans. They can fire off golf balls. You can take the AR and you can change out the barrel and change the chamber of basically the caliber of the rifle. And it still is an AR, even though it may not be necessarily classified as a 15, but it's still an AR platform. And that's the beauty of that platform, is the fact that you can modify, change, you can do different things. You can add slings, you can add scopes, you can add tripods. You can do all of these different things that a normal hunting rifle, which would come with a wooden stock and maybe is bolt action or something like that, doesn't have the capability of doing. You can add handguards that allow you to add lights and lasers and night vision and all kinds of stuff. It is a beautiful and very versatile platform. And so to sit here and say that the AR-15 is, an assault rifle, the only thing that is really bad about this, and I'm not saying bad as in, evil, but these people seem to think that just because it comes as a common form factor as black and looks very similar to the M16, which has been a weapon of war, they look at this and they look at it as, oh my gosh, this is a military weapon. It is not. It never has been, and it never will be. The M16 was patterned after it, and the M16 in particular had, at the time, two different versions. You had the A1 version, which was the first version, which had full automatic, firing the same caliber round, the 5.56 millimeter round. But as far as the round itself was pretty much the same between the AR-15 and the M16, although most AR-15s actually come in a 223 version rather than the 5.56. You actually have to special order an upper receiver and barrel in order to fire the 5.56. You can still fire 223 rounds through it. And there's a lot of other details dealing with how many grains of powder, the size of the bullet, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is is that the AR-15 has never been a weapon of war. It has always been a semi-automatic, meaning one trigger pull sends one round downrange. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the M16 had the ability to do fully automatic, which basically meant one trigger pull allowed you to fire multiple rounds. And then in the A2 platform, which was the secondary platform, they switched over to a 3-round burst and took away the fully automatic capability because of the fact that the military found out that when in war, when you pulled that trigger, you ended up spewing a whole bunch of bullets everywhere and your accuracy went into the toilet. And so they changed it over to a 3-round burst, which allows you to do 3 rounds. And generally speaking, you can get usually 2 of those rounds on target before the pull of the recoil makes the muzzle change its focus and lose it. But anyway, again, all he did was spew a whole bunch of liberal talking points when it comes to AR-15s. If you really want to know, Geraldo, just go and talk to a real gun enthusiast who truly understands the weapon that you are discussing. I got really disgusted, just as a side note. I got really disgusted because I think it was CNN at one point. They had a supposed general who was essentially showing them how the AR-15 fired. And as a part of it, I think it was on CNN, but I'm not 100% sure. But some liberal outlet, of course. And they were at the firing range, and this general, who really should have known better, he was just as much of an idiot as Geraldo would be. The minute that he basically stated, he's like, okay, so this is a semi-automatic firearm, and it fires, one pull of the trigger, fires 1 round, and then he goes and he demonstrates that. And of course, the wimpy reporter's like, oh my gosh, it's so loud, freaking out and covering up their ears and just like, it's a weapon. Okay. But then the general went and said this, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm pretty sure this is pretty close to what they said. They were like, okay, now I'm going to fire this weapon on a semi-full auto. As soon as I heard that, I went, what? Semi-full auto? There's no such thing. You either have semi-automatic or full automatic. Semi-automatic, again, is 1 pull of the trigger sends 1 round downrange. Now, to the discerning eye who watched that clip, you can clearly see that the general who was firing that weapon was actually pulling the trigger multiple times, albeit very quickly. But it's a semi-automatic action. It wasn't 1 pull of the trigger sends multiple bullets downrange. He was pulling it quickly, and he actually was using a technique which some people learn about this, is he was using the recoil to actually let the weapon go back and forth and make it so that his trigger pull was actually shorter and shorter so he could fire more rounds. But the fact of the matter is that it was still a semi-automatic weapon. These people are so stupid about this particular topic. They have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And unfortunately, a large majority of their audiences are just as stupid about this. I am just so frustrated with this entire conversation. But you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think we're going to have to necessarily worry about it here in the long run. And let me explain to you why. I've been waiting all night for this. I've been waiting all night for this one. Let me explain to you why I don't think we have to worry about it too much longer. Let me show you this. This article in Hot Air that is apparently a spinoff of this other one. And I guess liberal men are getting vasectomies a lot more now. All I have to do is say, thank you very much, you dumb butts. If you go and get these vasectomies, you will actually save a lot of arguments. And the reason why I'm saying this is because think about this. If you liberal men go and get vasectomies, number one, it will cut down on the number of abortions that these liberal women who apparently spend time with you, it will cut down on all of their abortions. So the whole idea that abortion is quote, no longer legal, which it actually is in most states, but it will cut down all of that argument. Not to mention the fact it will also make it so that you're not producing your stupidity in your offspring. Okay. Apparently from Hot Air, they found this article from Life News, and let me pop this up, that apparently there is a massive wave, Life News calls. This massive wave of liberal men are getting vasectomies to protest the overturning of Roe. Sometimes liberal logic just makes my head hurt. Okay. But apparently, according to this article, they've had reports of increased numbers of vasectomies that have been coming in over the last 6 months following the summer ruling of the Supreme Court overturn of Roe versus Wade. In fact, the reports began surfacing after Texas became the first state to successfully ban abortions in late 2021, with some reports indicating an increase of 15% in the number of men seeking vasectomies. After that, NPR indicated those numbers are shooting up nationwide. And thankfully, the men getting the vasectomies are the ones who would be perfectly fine with having their own children killed in an abortion. Now, apparently, some doctors are saying that there has been a 100 to 200% increase in vasectomies over the last 6 months following the Dobbs decision. And some of the quotes here, let's see, Dr. Eskar Guarin, who's the co-founder of the Simple Vas Medical Clinic, told Yahoo News, quote, there was an increase of basically 100% in the number of vasectomies from the moment Roe v. Wade was overturned. He says within only 48 hours, we signed up 50% of the patients that we normally sign up in a month, just immediately after June 24th, and that trend continued. Bravo. Bravo, you people. Bravo. I am, you know what? Please take responsibility for your actions. Go and get a vasectomy. I am fully on board with this, folks. I totally am, because not only does it mean that all of the time that the right has been talking about, part of the thing that has been missing from the male and female relationships and sex completely is the whole idea of personal responsibility and taking on responsibility for your actions, but using abortion as the stopgap or safety net for those responsible actions. Hey, I applaud these guys. Go and get a vasectomy. If you're not ready for kids, go and get a vasectomy. Now, one thing that is a bit of a problem with this vasectomy idea is the fact that you can actually supposedly have it reversed. I've never really heard of anybody doing that, to be honest, but I've been told that it is a reversible procedure. But you know what? I prefer this over the whole idea of abortion, to be honest with you. If you want to have a method of birth control, this is actually not that bad of a method. If you're refusing to use things like condoms, the pill, the IUD, spermicidal lubricant, and all these other manufactured things that you've got going on. If you seriously are looking at wanting to take responsibility, go for it. Go for it. I applaud you folks. I really do. This is a novel idea, and it falls right into the line that I've been trying to say is take responsibility for your own damn actions. Instead of expecting the woman to go through an abortion for an unwanted pregnancy, stop it before it happens. And if that means that you have to go in and do a procedure, hey, you know what? I'm good with it. I am really, really good with it. My gosh. But this kind of gives you an indication, realistically, of the type of logic, reasoning, and understanding that we are dealing with when we're dealing with the liberal left. These people are just so out there. But you know what? Again, I got to tell you, there's a saying out there that when your enemy is doing something that you want, don't screw with them. Just let them do it. Go for it, guys. I am not going to stop you. I am not going to sit here and ridicule you or anything else other than the fact that you are finally doing what the right has been trying to tell you to do all this time, which is take responsibility and prevent the pregnancy ahead of time so that your women don't have to use abortion as a form of birth control. I am cool with that. I am really, really, really cool with that. And with that, that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor. If you like the program, if you like what I do, do me a favor and subscribe. Head on over to Rumble. Rumble is my preferred platform. I would really appreciate it. I'm at 459. I would love to see that go up higher, as much as higher as it can. I understand there's a lot of people over on Facebook that are following me. You guys are great, and I'm certainly not going to argue if you decide to follow me on Facebook or YouTube or even Twitch, even though Twitch isn't working tonight. But do me a favor and just head on over to Rumble, please. And sign up for an account. It's free. It's guaranteed that I am going to be there consistently. They're not going to ban me or kick me off like YouTube and Facebook might. So do me a favor and just follow me over there. I really appreciate it. And we will see you Saturday night next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.